Hey everybody, I'm Chris. I'm here at HiFi Buys today, and in some of our other videos, we've gone through our reference level, or what we would consider endgame level systems. And today we're gonna do something a little bit differently. We're gonna take a look at trying to create great sound at any budget, and we're gonna go over the basics of how you would put together a system like that. And we're gonna look at 3 different systems that we've got put together. They range from about $1,500 to right around $5,000, and talking about the different things that you wanna focus on when putting together a system at these price points. And at the end, we'll take a look at one last thing that we think is also really important. So behind me, we've got what we call our starter system. Obviously, there are options out there at lower price points than what I'm gonna show you, but we really believe that this is the best bang for your buck, and that going any lower than this, you're gonna make serious sacrifices in either sound quality, feature set, or your user experience. To start out, there's really 3 major categories that you'd consider when putting together a system: your sources, amplification, and your speakers. So when putting together a system, the first thing to determine is, what is your source gonna be? Is it gonna be digital? Is it gonna be analog? How many inputs and outputs are you gonna need? From there, you can kind of jump ahead to what your favorite speakers are and which ones speak to you the most. So that's gonna be the most personal side of this decision. With that in mind, your sources and your speaker choice, that's together going to inform the right amplifier for your system. Our $1,500 budget in this system is actually considering one or the other source. To have streaming and vinyl in this system, budget would bump up to about $2,000. So we've chosen the Rega Planar 1 for this system, and it's an incredible starter turntable in our mind. But when shopping for a turntable in this price point, there's really 3 main things that we look for. One of the biggest things is simplicity. Belt drive, non-automatic turntables tend to sound the best. Direct drive motors and auto start stop functionality, all of that is certainly convenient, but it adds parts to the turntable that are vibrating and causing noise and adding noise to your system that is going to reduce the detail and your sound quality. Second, a high quality motor and drive system is very, very important. Cheaper turntables can introduce a lot of wow and flutter into the system using inconsistent parts, or especially belts that lack consistency in their manufacturing. So we suggest going with a well-established company and making sure you check out reviews for those turntables to make sure that they're producing a consistent product. Rega, having been in business for over 50 years at this point, definitely has a great track record and is a major reason why we trust them with a lot of our turntable business. Last but not least is the cartridge or needle that's on the turntable. This is something that gets overlooked sometimes because at these price points, it's often included and mounted already with the turntable, but the quality of that needle and stylus is incredibly important. Most cartridges at this price point are going to be moving magnet cartridges, but the needle itself and the actual shape of that needle can have a pretty big impact in the longevity of your vinyl collection. Lower quality tables, something like a Crossley that is very popular out there, have actually been known to have such an imprecise needle that it does physical damage to your records and can hurt the longevity of that collection. For streaming on this system, we went with actually what is probably our most popular product in the store. It's the Bluesound Node, which is a really, really fantastic streamer and a great addition to really just about any stereo. When shopping for a streamer, the first thing to consider is where you're getting your music from, whether that's local files in a library on a computer or a NAS drive, or a streaming service like Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, Qobuz. There's 100 of them, it feels like at this point. But not every streamer natively supports every streaming service, so it's very important to take that into consideration. Likewise, some streamers will support high-res streaming services, but not necessarily be able to play back those files in their highest quality from that streaming service. So want to make sure that you're able to take advantage of those higher quality files when you're paying for them. The second thing to consider is the user interface. This is really, to me, become one of the more important aspects of a streamer, because I tell people all the time, if it's a pain in the ass to turn on, it doesn't matter how good it sounds, because you're never going to turn it on. Bluesound, as an example, has been in business now for over 10 years. They've had a very long time to work out the bugs and the bumps in their app, and I will say say that from the day they launched to today, it's night and day, and the app is just a pleasure in my mind to use every day. But it's also compatible with third-party control like doing AirPlay or Spotify Connect or Tidal Connect or even Roon. The user interface isn't just about its native app necessarily, though that's a really, really strong place to start from, because if the native app is hard to use, that's kind of a signal that you're gonna have some software issues either now or down the road. And this is a really good sort of aspect of a streamer to look for reviews of that product. Reddit is a great place for that type of thing, for real human reviews of how it is to live with a product and use it on a day-to-day basis. And last, but again, not least, certainly not least in this case, is the sound quality. Big thing to look for in streamers is Wi-Fi connectivity or Ethernet, if you have that ability. That signals at least a bandwidth and a pipe coming into it that is large enough and can support the data streams for high-res audio. Something like Bluetooth, that is definitely going to be the most common type of streaming you're going to see out there, has compression kind of built into the standard, unfortunately. So you're losing some quality before you even get to the streamer itself. And in a lot of cases, going with significantly less expensive products than this, you're sacrificing so much in the way of other components that the sound quality is just not going to be there for you to enjoy it on a day-to-day basis. In this system, you'll notice the sources, including the node, actually cost more than the amplifier and even more than the speakers. And that's intentional in this system because investing in a high-quality source, and especially streamer up front when you're buying your first system, can really benefit you in the long run because it's something that can live with you through several upgrades in most cases. For example, we've got probably 12 Bluesound nodes in our store, from a system that $1,500 all the way up to probably $50,000 plus. So to give you an idea, that one source can really live with you through many iterations of a hi-fi system. So the second piece of the puzzle when putting together a hi-fi system is the speakers. And this is a good spot to mention that this video is really focused on putting together a hi-fi system, something that's really intended to be almost for personal use or a small group of people listening and sitting down intentionally listening, not necessarily a system that's gonna fill a whole house with music during a party or something along those lines, though a lot of these systems certainly can do that as well, but that's not where you're going to get the most out of them. At this price point, as you can see, we've chosen two very similar looking, fairly compact bookshelf speakers. We've got the KEF Q150s at currently $350 a pair, and the Paradigm Monitor SE Atoms currently selling for $299 a pair. At roughly $300 a pair, we haven't really found any floor standing speakers that we would recommend. The biggest difference between bookshelf size speakers and floor standing speakers is their low bass response. A larger cabinet and typically larger or more woofers in a floor standing speaker will just give them better bass response. So if you are looking for a system that has really deep punchy bass to it, again, it's somewhere where I would consider raising the budget slightly and either getting a pair of bookshelf speakers and adding a subwoofer or moving up to a floor standing speaker. But for roughly $300 a pair, you really get the most bang for your buck with a bookshelf sized speaker. When shopping for speakers at this price point, online reviews and specifications really can only take you so far. Places like Reddit, where you get real human feedback from people that have lived with those products, can be a great place to start and can give you a baseline, but there's really no substitute for being able to hear those products for yourselves. And especially with speakers, it's such a personal decision. We see people in here every day walk in thinking they wanted one product that they read everything about online, yet they come in and find that they prefer something else. And that's okay. That's part of the fun of having all of these different choices and brands available. You know, if you have the opportunity, the only way to make this decision is to go out there and listen to stuff, whether that's at a hi-fi store like HiFi Buys here in Atlanta, at a friend's house, or at an audio show, maybe, if you're lucky enough to live close enough to one of those. So outside of listening to things just from specs, it's nearly impossible to tell what something is going to sound like. Even between these two, you'd be surprised at how many people are shocked by how differently they sound, despite being nearly identical in size and driver components and all of that. Finally, we're on to the last piece of this hi-fi system puzzle, the amplification. In this system, we've got what's called an integrated amplifier. This one is a Yamaha AS301, and it sells today for $350. And the reason that we like to make these decisions in this order, with the amplifier being last, is once we know what sources we have and what speakers we're trying to drive, that's really the only way that we can make an informed decision about what amplifier we need. In this case, because we have small bookshelf speakers, we really don't need a ton of power. So something like this Yamaha that has 60 watts per channel is going to be plenty. Trust me, more than enough to drive these speakers as loud as you'd want. And because we have a turntable on the system, we'd like an amplifier with a built-in phono stage, which this Yamaha happens to have. So paying attention to what inputs you need and how much power you need for your speakers really will help you find the right integrated amplifier or receiver for your system. Main thing you want to look for in shopping for an amplifier when putting together a hi-fi system is making sure that you get all of the features that you need and that you're not paying for a bunch of features that you don't need. We see a lot of people using an old home theater receiver for a hi-fi system, and the improvement you can get going to a cheaper integrated amplifier is oftentimes night and day. The quality of every component that's in this unit is stepped up from a similarly priced AV receiver because we're not paying for HDMI switching, we're not paying for 7 amplifier channels, just 2. All of those things cost money. So at a similar price point, the quality of every part of that unit is going to be lower than if you're paying for fewer features. So what we get is something that does its job better than something else. That's our starter hi-fi system, which sells for right about $1,500. And now we're gonna take a look at a system where it's a step up from this in every piece and talk about what you get as you upgrade each of those components. So let's say you've got a budget of more than $1,500 to start with, or you've got a system already and you want to upgrade. Everything is very component based and interchangeable. So that's really the beauty of hi-fi as a hobby, is that each piece can be swapped out to fit your personal tastes or upgraded over time as those tastes or your environment changes. Starting with the speakers, this is the price point where we really think that considering floor standing speakers is a good idea. These are the Monitor SE6000Fs. These are the same series as the bookshelf speakers you saw in the previous system, and they sell for about $1,000 a pair. Another really great option if you don't have a large room or just prefer a bookshelf size speaker is the Paradigm Premier 200Bs. They are the same price as the floor standers right next to them, but you're getting better technology in them, better drivers, better cabinet design, better materials throughout, and really just going to give you better resolution, but not going to give you the same low-end response that you might get out of the Monitor SEs. So it really, again, comes down to personal preference with your speakers. And the KEFs that we have on the end, the Q350s, another example of just getting a larger speaker by upping your budget a little bit. Again, going to have better low-end response and fill a room better. With those better speakers, a lot of times comes the need for a better amplifier. And that's where we've gone, is just stepped up the line in Yamaha's AS701, which is very, very similar to the 301, but provides 100 watts per channel now versus the 60 watts per channel that we had in our smaller system. And really, again, just a great amplifier that has all the bells and whistles we need and none of the ones that we don't. Lastly, we're going to talk about sources. And again, going back to our last system, either of these sources would play incredibly well as a nice upgrade over the sources that we showed you on the other. We've got the Rega Planar 2, which is a refined version of the Planar 1 with a better platter, better arm, and the same cartridge. So gonna give you just more detail and quieter noise floor out of the turntable. And then in this case, we've stepped up in the streamer to an Eversolo DMP A6, which is a very different piece than the Bluesound. You can see it's got a beautiful touchscreen on it, and the interface is really the part that makes this shine. Sound quality wise, right there with the Bluesound node, but the interface and the user experience here is definitely a step up. As I mentioned previously, that source is something that if you buy a good one to start out with, can really follow you through several different systems and several different versions of that system as your needs or wants change. And now let's take a look at one more system that really fills a different need. So we've talked a lot today about what to look for when shopping for different components and trying to put together a hi-fi system. But at the end of the day, I really want to stress how personal of a decision this is. What we have here is really a system that is tough to describe without experiencing. And it just highlights the importance of finding a place where you can go and listen to stuff. This system behind me is a $5,000 system as it sits right now. And I know that that is a lot of money to a lot of people, but this is a pretty wild hobby in the terms of price points where you can get into it for $500 or for $5 million. This is a system that could be someone's starter or it could be an end game for someone, and both of those people will be tremendously happy. And it's not something that you're gonna see on a spec sheet without going and listening to it for yourself. The amplifier we have here, the PrimaLuna Evo 100, it is fully vacuum tube input and output stages, and on paper, it's only 35 watts a channel. But in fact, it is quite a bit more powerful than either of the Yamahas that we looked at earlier in this video. And at $2,800, it better sound better. And these Vandersteen 1CI Plus speakers behind me may look like they came from a garage sale in 1970, but in fact, there is a tremendous amount of technology and expertise packed behind these grill cloths that just makes the speaker completely disappear and connects you directly with the music that you're listening to. That experience of being right in the room with your favorite music when it was recorded is something that you truly have to experience for yourself, and that's why going and listening to stuff is so important. And last but not least, as we've mentioned before with source components, in this system, we're using a Bluesound node, the exact same Bluesound node that was in our $1,500 system. So say you started with that system and over time upgraded, found yourself with this integrated amp and these speakers, you would have the exact same source and didn't have to upgrade it and still getting great sound. So to wrap up this video, we said there was one last thing, and we're gonna talk about the value that you can find in used equipment and some things to look out for in shopping for it. So when you're trying to stay within a budget, used equipment can be a great way to get better sound quality while not breaking the bank. But there are some things to look out for. We, like a lot of great stores, take trades, and that can be a great way to upgrade yourself or take advantage of a deal that we've got on somebody else's trade-ins. But if you're shopping online, you wanna make sure that it's from a reputable dealer, as you don't know what that particular component's been through, what its current state is, and really how much life it has left in it. Like I've said throughout this whole video, if you have the opportunity, listen to it, test it out. But really, your surefire way is to buy from a store or a dealer, someplace where you can actually see the equipment, hear it for yourselves, and a place that you know will be around to support it after the fact. Thanks for watching, and we hope you enjoyed the video. And if you learned anything, please consider subscribing and leaving us a like. It really helps. And if we missed anything and you have any additional questions, please leave them in the comments below, because we'd love to help you create your perfect hi-fi system. That's all for now. And if you're ever in the Atlanta area, definitely stop by the store so you can hear all of these great systems for yourself. Thanks for watching.